Good afternoon or morning, depending on your time zone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Lauren Mason, and I'm a cognitive psychologist and research scientist. I serve as co-principal investigator of the Perkins Ready AI Fellowship and am also a co-author of the report that we will be discussing today, Applied Co-Intelligence, Preparing Career and Technical Education Learners for an AI-Driven Workforce. It's great to be here with all of you, and I'm looking forward to a robust conversation about preparing CTE learners for a rapidly changing AI-driven economy. We have an exciting session planned. Dr. Cameron Sublett will provide an overview of our recent report on the impact of AI on CTE programs and industries and introduce the applied co-intelligence model. Then you'll hear from a panel of CTE experts about the implications of the report's findings for CTE leaders and programs. Together, we'll highlight what steps are needed to position CTE for the future. Before we dive in, a few quick housekeeping notes. This session is being recorded. The recording will be emailed to registrants by CTE Futures in a follow-up email, and the recording will also be posted publicly online. Please submit your questions to the Q&A at any time during the presentation. While we may not be able to answer all of your questions live today, we will collect them and follow up through CTE Futures. Stay connected with CTE Futures for continued conversation on these topics. You'll find a link to the full report in the chat or on the screen through the QR code, so please feel free to download it and share it with your networks. Without further ado, let's get started by introducing Dr. Cameron Sublett. Dr. Sublett is the Senior Director of Innovation and Incubation at the Foundation for California Community Colleges, where he supports system-wide initiatives in partnership with the California Community College Chancellor's Office. Prior to his role at the foundation, Cameron was an associate professor of higher education and the executive director of the Education Research and Opportunity Center at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville. Over the past 18 months, I've had the opportunity to work closely with Dr. Sublett on the development of this report. And one of its most valuable contributions, I believe, is the applied co-intelligence model, a framework designed specifically for the realities of career and technical education in the AI era. I'm now going to hand things over to Dr. Cameron Sublett, who will provide an overview of the report and walk us through the applied co-intelligence model. Cameron?
Thanks, Lauren, for the kind introduction. I really appreciate that. Welcome, everyone. So happy to be here with you. I want to start by acknowledging the huge amount of time, energy, and genuine curiosity that has gone into this work. This project wouldn't have happened, first and foremost, without the support of Paula Kashtan and ECMC Foundation, who gave us both the space and the fuel to really dig into this topic. Also, big thank yous to our partners at ACTE and Advance CTE. You'll see that their fingerprints and contributions are all over the insights we're going to walk through today. Massive thanks to you, Lauren, and our other co-authors for all the time you put into this project. And of course, tremendous gratitude to Michael Tinsley at the Tennessee Board of Regents for being the embodiment of the applied co-intelligence model. So with all of that, let's go ahead and dive right in. Next slide, please. So here's the roadmap for the next 20 minutes. The report, if you've had a chance to read it, moves through a pretty logical arc. We start with the foundations of AI, where it came from and where it's going. And then we look at what that means for work, broadly speaking. And then we zoom in on CTE learners in particular. From there, we introduce the applied co-intelligence model, which is a framework we've built to help CTE leaders prepare learners for an AI-driven future. And so that's the exact structure I'm going to follow here with you all today. So we'll kick things off with the basics. How did we get here with AI and where are we going? Next slide, please. So one of the surprising things we learned early in this process is that even the experts don't agree on a single definition of AI. We heard this again and again, including from renowned AI experts and technologists, who told us you could put them in a room together and no one would agree on the fundamental question of what is AI. And I found that really interesting. But one thing they also made very clear to us, AI is not new. It's been evolving for nearly 8 decades. And for a long time, it's lived quietly in the background, powering things like recommendation systems, fraud detection, logistics, and medical imaging. It just didn't have a shiny chatbot face or catchy name until recently. Next slide. I'm not going to walk you through every decade listed in this slide. We go over this in pretty good detail in the report, but think of this more as a vibe check on the history we lay out in the actual paper. If you zoom out, you're going to see a pattern. Bursts of enthusiasm, periods of AI winters, and then breakthrough moments. We go from early logic-based programs in the 50s to expert systems in the 80s. Machine learning makes an appearance in the 90s and early 2000s. And eventually we arrive here with deep learning, neural networks, and transformers. And all of that's built the foundation for what we experienced in 2022 when ChatGPT arrived and made AI suddenly feel very, very personal. Next slide. So now we're in this shift from traditional AI to generative AI, systems that don't just analyze data, make predictions, but create new things, text, images, video, code. And one stat still blows my mind. ChatGPT hit 100 million monthly users in just 3 months. That's faster rate of adoption than any technology we've ever seen. Even more hard to comprehend is what's next. Every expert we interviewed said the same thing. They don't really know what AI is going to look like in even 5 years. Quantum computing is advancing, robotics is accelerating. We're entering a world where agentic AI, these are tools that not only answer questions but do actions on our behalf, become normalized. So it appears that AI is not going anywhere anytime soon, but the AI that we know today is going to look remarkably different than what AI might be in the future. Next slide. Okay, so in the report, we now shift away from the history of AI and we look at something that's just as important. What happens to people when technologies like this show up? The good news that we report is that we actually have a century's worth of research on technological change, and it all points to four big patterns that show up again and again. First, when there's a new technology, there's gradual adoption and adjustment. Even when a new technology arrives suddenly, think of electricity, the internet, or now AI, the real transformation on work takes place over years or even decades. Second is that new technologies often create brand new jobs that emerge alongside the technological development, jobs we couldn't have imagined beforehand. Automation in agriculture led to manufacturing jobs. Automation and manufacturing jobs contributed to the rise of office work. And now AI is already spawning new roles like AI auditors. Third, it's important to realize that research shows tasks inside jobs change long before the jobs themselves change. And then fourth and finally, we consistently see that technological disruption and growth leads to a growth of high skill and low skill jobs on the ends of the labor market polar spectrum, with pressure placed on the middle. Middle skill roles, which are the bread and butter of CTE pathways, often get squeezed unless education systems stay nimble and focused on adaptability. Importantly, in addition to these patterns that research has uncovered, we also have existing research pointing to frameworks to explain exactly how technology impacts labor. Next slide, please. Now, don't worry, I'm not going to turn this lecture into an Econ 101 discussion. We discuss these frameworks in great detail in the report, but for the curious among you, these frameworks point to helpful explanations, conclusions like technology rewards workers with more education. which is a helpful framework and idea, but it's a little too tidy for the world we live in. So other frameworks have evolved to show how tech tends to automate the routine stuff within occupations first. The task polarization framework, for example, explains why the middle of the labor market has been squeezed over time. We're also reminded that technology doesn't only replace tasks, it also creates new tasks that depend on human oversight. Next slide. Importantly, though, generative AI doesn't slot neatly into any of these frameworks. It can perform non-routine cognitive tasks, and these are the very tasks we used to say or believe were automation proof. Writing, summarizing, synthesizing, brainstorming, basic judgment. AI can do a lot of these things surprisingly well. Even more frustrating when our team looked across all the different empirical measures of AI exposure or automation risk, the supposed scientific instruments for estimating to what extent occupations are at risk of being upended by AI, we found that they contradict each other constantly. One index says a job is safe, another says it's doomed, one says exposure means vulnerability, another says exposure means opportunity. So what do we take from that? Well, we've chosen to focus on the signal versus the noise. And that signal is that AI is reshaping the skill economy, not necessarily the job economy yet. And it's doing it fast. Next slide. So let's now zoom over to CTE learners in particular. Contemporary CTE has come a long way from its vocational roots. It's more rigorous, more diverse, more aligned to labor markets than ever before. And it's more respected by the public. And it even has bipartisan support. But stratification still exists across CTE programs and pipelines by race, by gender, and income. And this all matters, and we're going to explain why. Next slide. As a preview, though, when we were writing our series of cluster-specific briefs, we interviewed dozens of industry experts. And in every one of our interviews across all career clusters, we heard the same thing. AI is already reshaping the work CTE learners are being prepared for, not in a hypothetical way, not in a coming soon way. It's happening right now, just unevenly and in ways that aren't always visible on the surface. The technologies vary widely too. There are specific AI tools and tech for specific CTE clusters and fields. You may not have heard of these tools, but they do exist. And some rely on generative AI models, but not all of them. Many rely on traditional AI technologies. Based on everything we've learned, we see two potential futures for CTE learners. And I'll give you a quick version of each, which we lay out in detail in the paper. The first is the pessimist view. If programs overemphasize narrow technical training, if robotics accelerate, and if middle skill roles continue to get squeezed, CTE learners, we fear, could find themselves at greater risk because the work they are preparing for has changed, but the CTE program's policies and pedagogies haven't. But the second possibility is the optimist view, wherein CTE's applied, hands-on, industry-aligned training may actually protect learners more than, quote, traditional academic pathways, especially as AI begins disrupting white-collar tasks at scale, which is a possibility. There are many promising policies and practices already in place in contemporary CTE. And if we lean in, double down, and get serious about fostering applied co-intelligence, there's a lot to be optimistic about. And that's where we land on the optimist side. Next slide. Here, we kind of ground this optimist pessimist view in actual data in the report. And I won't belabor it right now in the presentation that you're all sitting in on, but here's one clear finding. Next slide. When we analyzed AI exposure across CTE clusters, something surprising jumped out. CTE pathways may be better positioned than many academic tracks. You can see here that the jobs requiring higher levels of education to enter are at greater AI exposure, which may suggest that these are the jobs that could get disrupted at greater rates. On the other hand, exposure isn't inherently good or bad, so we can't claim a victory lap. Exposure doesn't automatically mean automation. In fact, high exposure, which we see here for those jobs requiring a BA or higher, could mean more opportunity to use AI tools. could be more chance to control systems, more productivity gains, more value placed on human oversight. In fact, jobs with higher exposure may end up being the ones where workers use AI most effectively and therefore become more valuable. The real differentiator, therefore, isn't the degree to which a job is exposed or not exposed to AI. It's whether workers know how to work with AI safely, critically, and intelligently. And this brings us directly to the need for the applied co-intelligence model. Next slide. This is where everything starts to converge in the report. We're at a moment where learners are asking hard questions. Will my training even matter? Where is AI going? Educators are feeling pressure, confusion, and in some cases, even fear. And yet, folks like Lisa Gavelder at Google are telling us the future does not belong to AI dabblers. It belongs to those willing to lean in. It belongs to learners who are actively engaged with AI, not just as users, but as collaborators. And that's the essence of our model, the applied co-intelligence framework or model. Next slide. So let's talk about what we're advancing here. If you're not familiar with Ethan Mollick's book, Co-Intelligence, I highly recommend it. Mollick's original co-intelligence framework brilliantly captures this leaning in paradigm. Instead of fearing job displacement, he argues humans should embrace AI as a collaborative partner to enhance productivity and creativity. Mollick argues we should, one, always invite AI to the table. Two, assume and treat it as a coworker. Three, treat it as human-like yet alien. And four, assume the version you're working with is the worst one you're ever going to see. In other words, AI is going to get better. But Malick's discussion, helpful though it may be, isn't necessarily tailored for CTE learners. It lacks a grounding in the realities of hands-on, safety-critical, occupation-specific work. Hence, the ACI. Next slide. The ACI is built around three interconnected spheres: technical skill, transferable skill, and AI mastery. Where they intersect, we believe this is the model of applied co-intelligence. Next slide. With regard to technical skill, these are the entry tickets to the profession. This is the bread and butter of CTE programs and courses. Technical skills remain essential in an AI-driven economy. You can't AI your way through electrical wiring or patient care yet, anyway. But there's also a growing importance for transferable skills. These are the human skills that AI cannot replicate. Like Malik and Jamie Marasotis, who we talked to from Lumina Foundation, it's important to emphasize transferable skills to keep humans in charge when information is messy or ambiguous. And then the last sphere is what we refer to as AI mastery. Next slide. But what is AI mastery? Well, at a high level, we argue AI mastery isn't about teaching AI on the side. It's about embedding AI skill development inside the real world, inside the real work. AI tools vary across occupations and industries. ChatGPT is not the tool your students may need. Students may not even need generative AI. In many occupations we explored, traditional AI dominates. AI mastery means moving from the generic AI applications to task-specific applications aligned with particular occupations. The continuum is a developmental path that makes the ACI real. It moves from literacy, which is I know this exists, to mastery, which is I can critique or adapt the system. It moves from generic application to specific application. Next slide. To ground this in a real world scenario, we have the fictional example of Maya. Meet Maya. In her first semester, Maya's instructor takes a hands-off approach to AI, merely mentioning that students are welcome to use AI tools in the class. So left to her own devices, Maya uses ChatGPT to summarize textbook chapters, help write emails, edit her work. We refer to this as AI literacy. It's a generic skill untethered to her future occupations. But as she progresses, her instructor becomes more of an active AI coach. Her instructor designs a specific class assignment. Maya must use an AI-powered voice-to-text tool to describe a mock patient intake video and then critically audit and edit the transcript for clinical accuracy and missing context. This is AI fluency. It's an industry-specific application of AI integrated into her training. Moving further up the continuum, we see that Maya is in a high fidelity simulation and her patient presents with messy conflicting systems. Her assignment is to evaluate and select the best of three different AI diagnostic tools to help form a hypothesis justifying her choice based on HIPAA compliance and data security. This, we argue, is AI agency. It's a high stakes, task specific application that requires her judgment. And then finally, in Maya's evolution, we see for her capstone project, her instructor tasks Maya with critiquing the predictive algorithm used in the college's simulation lab. This ultimately, we argue, is a systems level application. She no longer is just using tools in general, but specific ones tailored to her program in healthcare and is able to critique and adapt the systems themselves. Next slide. So that's the goal, applied co-intelligence. And we lay out in the report specific examples of what this could look like across all the CTE clusters. But we have to name the real obstacles that need to be tackled in order to get to this goal, this in place. First is what we refer to as the alignment crisis, where there is pervasive distrust and disequilibrium, where you have employers and CTE providers both waiting for the other to figure out AI first. The second is what we refer to as the human capital gap. Faculty need support, they need time, they need tools, they need training, and they don't need pressure necessarily and not fear. The third is structural barriers characterized by fragmented policies that create confusion instead of clarity. And then the fourth is the evidence gap. Right now, the evidence base is thin. We're building the plane while flying it, and we don't have strategic direction, and we don't have strategic understanding of the tools and how they impact learning for different learner populations. But we do have momentum, people innovating, experimenting, and sharing what works, and we elevate these best practices in the report. The breakthroughs are emerging. We argue that we just need to scale them. Next slide. And in the report, we offer up a number of recommendations for how to overcome these barriers and these challenges. We argue AI integration cannot be left to chance. We need to be intentional. We need to be strategic. Policymakers have to create elastic policies that provide guardrails, but allow for flexibility as AI tools and technologies develop. And we need to invest in people and infrastructure. Providers need to embed AI within technical programs using the ACI model. So we're hitting that nexus of technical, transferable, and AI mastery. And then industry must co-create everything from curriculum to work-based learning. We can't solve this from one direction. It has to be a coordinated effort. Next slide. So I'll close with this. A student once asked in a session we were on, how is any of this good? And we believe that question captures the tension of this moment. There's excitement, but there's also a lot of fear, and there's a lot of ambiguity. We believe the answer lies in curiosity and helping learners understand not just how to use AI, but how to direct it, question it, shape its impact on their fields. But curiosity needs direction. Darren Asamoglu and Simon Johnson argued in their seminal book, Power and Progress, that technology is not destiny. The path technology takes in shaping society is the result of human choices and what they refer to as countervailing forces. The ACI model is our countervailing force. It's our way of ensuring that the technologies that are evolving and advancing right before our eyes don't choose the future for us, but we choose it for ourselves. So long as we're able to be curious and focused. As AI gets smarter, we argue we will get wiser. Thank you so much. Next slide. The report that I have referred to in this presentation is available at this moment online. There's a QR code to direct you to the report if you'd like to read it. And with that, I'm going to hand it off to my colleague, Lauren.
Thank you, Cameron, for that overview of the report and the applied co-intelligence model. Now, I'm excited to bring in our panel of CTE leaders to share their insights and perspectives on these findings. We'll begin by introducing today's panelists. Our first panelist is Dr. Alicia Hislop, who has spent almost 25 years working in CTE and is currently the Chief Policy, Research, and Content Officer at the National Association for Career and Technical Education. At ACTE, Alicia leads the organization's policy, advocacy, research, program implementation, and professional learning strategies to ensure educators have access to tools, resources, and educational opportunities strategies that enhance their ability to offer high-quality CTE programs to every learner. The next panelist, Kate Kramer, serves as the Executive Director of Advance CTE, leading organizational strategy and policy to support states in achieving high-quality career and technical education for every learner. In her role, she manages large-scale projects that sit at the nexus of policy, advocacy, communications, and implementation. Next up is Michael Tensley. Michael Tensley's educational career spans over 25 years, during which he has held various roles, including secondary instructor, assistant principal, principal, and district level positions. For more than a decade, he has been a vital part of the college system of Tennessee. Michael manages over $5 million in annual Perkins funds, supporting colleges in enhancing their educational offerings. His recent initiatives include responsibly incorporating AI into CTE programs and aligning them with workforce needs, demonstrating a forward-thinking approach to education in a rapidly evolving job market. Our final panelist is Dr. Tom Pigg. Tom serves as the Executive Director of Workforce Solutions and the Dean of the School of Business, Industry, and Technology at Jackson State Community College. Over his 35-year tenure at Jackson State, he has held the rank of full professor of computer information technology and has served as the principal investigator on multiple technology-focused grants, currently overseeing the Digital Skills Employment and Workforce Development Grant, the Perkins Ready AI Grant, and the Upskill Mid-South Grant. So to kick off our discussion today, Kate, Alicia, Michael, and Tom, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this tool that Cameron has shared with us and how it might help improve policy and resonate with the practitioner. So specifically, to what extent do you see the applied co-intelligence model helping CTE system educators and leaders in preparing students for an AI-driven workforce? Alicia, we'd love to start with you.
Thanks, Lauren, and good afternoon, everyone. At ACTE, we really focus a lot on practitioners in the classroom at the local level. And I think from that standpoint, the model really helps to identify and frame how AI can and should be integrated into CTE programs within that occupational context, not just as an add-on. I know that's something Cameron talked a lot about as he went through. And much of the AI literature that I see across my desk every day, articles and trade press, they routinely talk about AI literacy almost as something that students learn over here. But the applied co-intelligence model really can help educators, I think about embedding those skills into their programs, just like they would with any other skills students need to be successful in those careers, whether that's, another type of technology or, safety or the technical skills that they need. And so putting AI in that context, I think, helps to frame it in a way that will be very useful for educators.
Absolutely. Thank you, Alicia. Kate, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yes, well, also thank you and hello, everybody. I'll echo, I think, a lot of what Alicia said, but I think what's really most exciting and useful about this model and for the system as a whole is that it similarly recognizes that learning AI is a skill set or multiple skill sets that can and should evolve over time. This is very much what CTE is built to do, but I think the fear of this AI as that dichotomous, you know it or you don't know it, but really putting it in the language and the world of CT, which is constantly evolving and needing to stay up to date to respond to industry. So it doesn't treat AI as a skill you either don't have or have, but a set of skills that need to be developed and redeveloped over time as technology and relevant use cases evolve. I think it can help shift mindsets, which is really important for leaders at all levels, to wrap their arms around AI and make it more accessible and frankly less scary and intimidating. I mean, we get questions around, should we start an AI pathway? And my response is a pathway to what? What would that even mean? It's not a career, it's a set of skills and technologies. And so I think this can have a better answer of it's not its own thing, it needs to be in the fabric. And I think it just makes it, lastly, I think it just makes this what's so compelling is how practical it makes, like how you can actually go about implementing it, and doesn't treat AI as something as an add-on, something that's in isolation, but as something that has to be embedded and integrated in curriculum at all levels in CTE, but frankly in core academics as well.
Thank you, Kate. Michael, we'll turn it over to you next.
Yeah, absolutely. From a systems perspective, what we want to do is we want to be able to support instructors and staff on the implementation of AI. Just like that was just shared, is AI can be a separate component as a program, right? There are programs, there are CTE degrees, there are AI certifications that can be achieved. But what we're talking about with this particular report is how to integrate the skill set of AI within particularly all programs, in this case in CTE. And so what we're trying to do from a system level is find out what instructors need, what they want, and how they can apply that. And so we've had workforce development partners working with our colleges and trying to support and say, hey, in the field of X, Y, and Z, we are doing this type of integration of AI. And then we're like, okay, we need to have our colleges prepare our students so that when they come to apply for a job, they have the skill set that you need for them to do. And a lot of times we're talking about, if you talk about soft skills, being able to read, write, and interact with people, AIs can be kind of a technical / soft skill that people know how to maneuver within the job setting, knowing, oh, okay, I can research that and then be able to maneuver and being able to apply my AI skill set to this particular problem. So it becomes another opportunity. And what I love about this report is this report dives into all of that. So for those who are in education on the secondary and post-secondary side, the state level, you can dive into the report and start getting a better understanding of potentially where you can either start where you're currently at, or if you're so many steps down the path of AI, you can find where that path is going through this report and seeing where your next steps are. So this is where research always benefits us in the long run. It's that we start researching, we start seeing what experts are saying, what's actually being done in the field, and then how that applies to everyone's current situation. So I'm excited about the report simply because there's been a lot of research done. I'm talking to experts about how this co-intelligence model can be applied so that we can all benefit. In the end, we're talking about our students.
Thank you, Michael, for adding that insight. Tom, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. And well, I agree with everything that's been said, and it's kind of fun to be the last person to kind of comment on a question. For the last several years, I've been on a AI roller coaster, as I'm sure most of you have been. And probably within the last 9 months, and we've been part of the Ready AI Fellowship in Tennessee. And that roller coaster just, steeper hills, and it's going faster. And there's a lot of, we think AI is going nowhere and everywhere, just kind of said in the beginning. We've kind of formed some working groups here at Jackson State as an example, where we have folks that use AI in the classroom, use it professionally. We have some that use it professionally, but not in the classroom. Then we have some that don't use it, period, and are scared to death of it. And so it's a challenge. It's a challenge to kind of figure out where we are. We part of our project that we're working on through the Ready AI grant is involving industry partners. And I think when we get to some other questions, I'm going to say probably a little bit more about that. But we're also finding that industry is confused too about where AI is going. And so when I had the opportunity really to read the report and try to digest it, and there's still just so much in that report, and this co-intelligence model really makes sense. Okay, I mean, I think that in some ways, some of the things that I've been kind of seeking with regards to how CTE type programs are going to mesh with the workforce is definitely a good place to start, if not the answer. And I'm very fortunate. I kind of straddle the fence here. I'm being in the workforce non-credit side of the house, plus being on the business, industry, and technology side of the house. That is, it's quite a mix, but it really connects. And we are having folks out there that, incumbent workers, we're having folks in the industry that are begging for AI education, standalone. And, this is really opening my eyes when I've read the report that, okay, it doesn't need to be standalone. I mean, yeah, the basics. Yeah, we've got to have a little bit of that basic AI intelligence, but we need to move up that ladder. I think that there's a lot of promise. And if you've not had the opportunity to really dig into this report yet, it's great. And Cameron, I want to just commend you on it, especially the first half of the report that's meant to kind of educate you a little bit on those basic AI literacy topics. And it was very beneficial to me, and then get into the heart of the model itself.
Thank you, Tom. This actually sets us up perfectly for the next question, which does dive in a bit more to industry. So, one of the challenges addressed in the report is this misalignment between CTE classrooms and industry, and Cameron also touched on that in his presentation today. The rapid pace of AI development seems to add a new layer of difficulty to sort of getting everyone on the same page. So, what are some ways that you think this issue can potentially be addressed moving forward? Tom, we'd actually like to start with you.
I guess one of the first things, and again, I'm going to kind of go back to the reference in the report about the traditional advisory board meetings and curriculum cycles and things like that. Just it's not going to work. There's got to be a kind of a mindset difference there in how we approach this. We need to be more involved in those partnerships between faculty and industry. And more often, that is a challenge. Okay, it's a challenge, and forgive me if I kind of bleed over into another question. Hopefully, I won't. But the colleges really need to invest in the faculty, and not just again the standalone AI training courses, the basics, and so on. I mean, we're going to need some of that, obviously. But one thing that we've been fortunate with this project that we started with the Ready AI grant, we did involve some key faculty and some key industry partners that we have. We've got a partner in manufacturing, we have one in utilities, we have one in healthcare, and there's many others that we have. But in this group, it's kind of a smaller package right now. But one of the particular organizations that we're going to be working with, they've been chasing this AI thing for a while, and they've kind of come up with some ideas, and together we're going to be working on a project, okay, an AI project in industry, and that is something that's going to really make this practical. And again, eventually. And Michael, we're going to ask for more money eventually. Thank you in advance. But we're going to need to get students involved in it too. And again, reading the report and reading some of the examples of how we move through the model, if you will. I can see where this is going to really help to benefit these students in these CTE related type occupations, because they're going to be, we're going to have to teach the basics of AI, but we're going to apply it to those specific occupations and how we can actually use it in that occupation. And again, I'm kind of looking at notes here as I'm again trying not to overlap with other things that I want to say maybe a little bit later on. But I think that the answer is those partnerships that we've got to develop, and we've got to have that buy-in, that support from obviously our local colleges, our administrators, plus in the case of Tennessee, our Board of Regents and others need to support us in getting faculty into these places where they can be part of these industry partners. So I'll stop there.
Fantastic. Thank you, Tom. You raised a lot of wonderful, really important points. I think, your emphasis on helping support the faculty is really important, because there's definitely a lot of nerves surrounding this topic. So, another thing to think about, which Cameron also mentioned briefly in his presentation, is this idea that there is pessimism swirling about CTE learners being particularly vulnerable to some of these AI-driven workforce shifts. However, in the report, we do also balance that with some optimist perspectives about why CTE learners are actually well suited to these changes. So, how do you think CTE learners could be especially resilient here? And what do you think they need to ensure their success moving forward? Cameron, I'd like to start with you.
Yeah, I can go relatively quickly. I'm love to hear from Alicia and others on this particular question. But one of the arguments we make that kind of supports or undergirds this idea, the optimist case, as we refer to it in the paper, is the fact that there's a bunch of really great policies that have already been put in place to help CTE providers tackle this exigency. Um, and in particular, we name a number of policies and practices in the report in Perkins 4 and Perkins 5. So, like an emphasized effort and focus on the alignment of CTE offerings and proximal labor market demand. That is really consequential to helping overcome the barriers and challenges we call out in the report. Integrated curriculum. We also call out the CLNA as a really great potential vehicle to bridge that kind of that chasm between providers and employers. That is a fantastic vehicle to really kind of start conversations around how the providers can be sure that the tools that they're exposing students to are the exact tools that employers are using on the day-to-day job. And I think that's the important thing too that we uncovered in this report is just the wide spectrum of AI tools and applications that do exist beyond Claude and ChatGPT and Gemini. In our talks with industry experts and employers, they pointed out tools we had never heard of before that utilize some form of AI. And that was kind of the aha moment for us was like, oh, these are the tools that students need to be having in the classroom. These are the tools that students need to have opportunities to access. Sure, LLMs are really great tools, and it's a necessary skill set, I think, moving forward. But as students are being prepared and trained for specific occupations and CTE programs, we need to have that bridge, that connection established so we know the particular tools that are being used in the actual occupations that they're going to be going into. And the CLNA, the labor market alignment push in Perkins 4 and 5, I think is really helpful there. I also think the special populations emphasis is really important too to help make sure we're not stratifying the CTE pipelines. And so that's just kind of my take out of the gate. Alicia, did you want to follow up?
Yes, I think one of the things that positions really CTE really well, both programs and learners, is evolving and changing with labor market demands is what CTE has had to do for decades. When I think back to the first kind of technology class I took in school or my first job, we were still using a typewriter. And so CTE programs have evolved with the labor market through, computers and the internet and, all of these other technology advancements of the last couple decades. So adding on AI is just another type of advancement that programs now have to respond to. And all of those policies you mentioned, Cameron, about labor market alignment and the CLNA help CTE programs think about how they need to involve, really on a daily basis, CTE educators and administrators, that's constantly in their minds. So, applying a new type of technology, new types of skills is something that's already part of the fabric of CTE programs. I think another part of the fabric of CTE programs is the notion of embedding academic, technical, and employability skills together. We've talked a lot about that throughout the last couple of decades, how we increase both the rigor and relevance of CTE programs by embedding all of those skill sets. And that fits very well with the applied model and the way those different skills work together to make learners capable and effective in using all those AI tools you mentioned.
Absolutely. I love your emphasis on embedding AI skills. That's another thing that we're really interested in. And I'm wondering, Kate, if you could share a little bit more about why you think this AI integration rather than isolation is so important in CTE classrooms.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as we've all agreed, right? AI is a skill set or skill sets. And we know that skills are learned through application, right? And are demonstrated through application and are mastered through application and usually application in kind of multiple opportunities. And that's how CT classrooms are designed, right? To enable learners to build skills. And what I think is so important and what makes so tangible is learning those AI skills through the lens of their pathway or chosen field. That makes them more relevant and makes them more tangible, less overwhelming, and like actually prepares them. Do I need to learn how to best use AI in a healthcare setting? I do not. But as a nonprofit leader, do I need to learn how to use AI to more effectively lead an organization? Absolutely. And that is where I'm focusing. And so this is kind of a big part of why when we updated or modernized the National Career Clusters framework, which was released a little over a year ago, we included these new cross-cutting clusters, one of which is digital technology, which includes data science and AI as a subcluster. And the cross-cutting clusters are these three clusters that are both sectors, but also need to be integrated and can be integrated across every other sector. They're intentionally designed to be flexible. They can be contextualized into each and every CT pathway and to really facilitate that interdisciplinary and applied learning and recognizing that there aren't these silos of sectors that we used to have. And so I think that was the design. I think recognizing this is the way that the economy and industry is going. Just one other kind of point I want to make, because I saw a question in the chat about, particularly this is focused on post-secondary, but for secondary learners and, the states and districts that are potentially limiting or banning use of AI for learners because afraid of cheating or plagiarism or whatever it may be. I actually would argue that this model is a way forward for being able to allow AI use, but with clear guardrails, right? Around having that alignment of the technologies, right? To Cameron's point, there's a lot of technologies that is specific to that pathway, that sector. That can give more control over educators because they'll be the ones assigning it. They'll be the ones reviewing it. They'll actually understand what is happening. And just as we have guardrails and restrictions around students using heavy equipment, as one example, like we can absolutely create similar guardrails around AI for our younger learners as needed. So I think it actually can break through some of those because it's so much more concrete versus just this, amorphous feeling of AI is we don't understand it and we're worried about it. So that's my last point.
Thank you, Kate. That conceptualization was really helpful. As we prepare to close today, I'd love to hear one call to action that you all have in mind in the context of the people that you represent. Alicia, can we start with you?
Sure. And I'm going to go back a little bit to that educator-employer relationship that we were talking about earlier that's so important and has to be kind of a continuous conversation. It can't be just a one-off thing where you ask the employer about AI and you don't come back for another year because, there's so many things changing and rapid evolution in this field. So I think my kind of one call to action would be for educators to go out to employer partners and identify kind of one new tool or strategy that's being used that is very specific to the workplace of the fields that they're teaching, that they can start to incorporate with their students. Even if they've done that already, there may be new things that have come out since they've had those conversations. And I think what Cameron was talking earlier about discovering tools we don't even know exist that might be being used in the workplace is really critical for educators on the ground.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. Kate, do you have something you'd like to add?
Sure. I mean, I think my call to action is that everyone should start using AI and in the lens of the applied co-intelligence model, right? There are so many people out there still intimidated by it, which is limiting innovation and implementation. But use it in your context, right? If you're a policymaker, we represent state leaders, right? They're reviewing programs of study. They're data specialists. They're supervisors, right? You are supervisors of people. There's a lot of use cases to build that familiarity and really, I think the mindset of literacy to mastery of that progression, I think is really helpful. I think my other call to action was kind of covered, right? For our members, thinking about how you're embedding questions about AI use cases, not just AI, but AI use cases in your standards review, your program of study design, your local advisory structures, your CLNA, and just kind of how do you signal the constant asking and checking, just as kind of Alicia mentioned.
Absolutely. Thank you. Michael, what call to action do you have in mind?
Yeah, it's the field is very large and vast, and I think that's what scares everybody sometimes is how large and vast it can be, and where do I fit in as a single educator? How do I prepare my students best? And we have DOL who just released their literacy framework this week. We have yesterday the Chinese humanoid example of how they can now be totally can replace humanoids as far as the way they function. And this is not even AI related, but just thinking about the technology and how it moves forward. What I would say is take that first step. Here's my call to action. Take the first step. You're an instructor who's scared on the secondary or post-secondary side. You're a staff support person who doesn't know where to begin. Start with a conversation with someone that is in your workplace, whether it be a supervisor or a coworker, and say, I would love to dive into this. I'm worried about how to start, but I know there's this report. Maybe we can start looking at it together, or maybe it's reach out to Advance CTE or ACTE or someone else on the panel here. We're happy, obviously, to be able to assist as well. But the goal here, in my mind, as a call to action, is don't wait any longer for someone else to fix it for you. Start the process with a conversation, coworkers preferably, but obviously your organizations that are represented here are very good as well. So my call to action is take that first or second step forward and don't be left behind, or don't let your students be left behind.
Absolutely. Thank you, Michael. Tom, I'll turn it over to you.
Well, just one thing, and just this is kind of something I gleaned from the report, and I'm just writing a note down about it. It said the report shows that AI struggles in most context-rich environments, like judgment, physical interaction, and variability.
Yes.
Okay, and so what I kind of gleaned from that, from the student's perspective, is AI is not going to fix it for you. Okay, that's where the model, except the co-intelligence part of the model comes into play. There's a piece in there that AI is not going to be able to do, and so we need to instill that idea in the students' minds that okay, they got to get out there and they're going to be in situations where it's hard to predict. And they've got to know how to react and how to use that co-intelligence of the AI partner. And I would go ahead and just say, as far as we can't. We're going to have to invest. We're going to have to invest time in faculty. We're going to have to give them the opportunity. We're going to have to give them the time to develop these opportunities for students to understand you're working alongside AI. It's not AI tells you to do something and you do it. No, you got to work side by side with it. So that's my takeaway.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tom. Such important points. Cameron, we'll close with you.
Yeah, I would say there's just so much right now. Like there's a new AI report every day. I'm struggling to stay on top of it. It just feels like I'm drinking from a fire hose or someone's asking me to swallow the ocean. So I definitely sympathize with those of you out there that are struggling to stay afloat. But I would just encourage everyone to start small, but definitely start. You don't have to have a fully fleshed out, complete, comprehensive AI policy in a week. But you can start experimenting on your campus or on your school or in your system by identifying an AI champion or a subset of AI champions to experiment with, kick off a community of practice to tackle one challenge or one issue. You don't need to reinvent the wheel either. In doing all this work, I've come across folks from different states, different districts, different schools, and it's frustrating to me how little they're communicating with each other, and they're just and doing things that are so exciting and innovative on their own, but they could all benefit from efficiency gains if they were working together. So reach out. There's no need to start from scratch. So many promising practices are out there. And the last thing I would leave with is a quote that we call out in the report. That's not mine. It was from Lisa Gavelder when we were together with her, and she did say that the future doesn't belong to AI dabblers. It's those that are willing to lean in. But I thought a more inspirational quote from her was that this is the land of opportunity for the curious. And to me, that I found that to be both optimistic, inspirational, and yet, challenging. Even for me, I feel like there's a lot for me to be curious about and a lot for me to continuously learn.
Thank you, Cameron, for leaving us with that. I wish we could continue this conversation, but I think that's all that we'll have time for today. Thank you so much for joining today's webinar, and thank you to our panelists for sharing their insights. We have a very quick poll for our attendees to complete. We thank you for sharing your feedback. And just a quick reminder, CTE Futures will be sharing today's recording with all registrants, so look for that in your inbox soon. To stay connected with us and continue the conversation about AI and CTE, follow CTE Futures on LinkedIn and subscribe to our newsletter. You can scan the QR codes on your screen to do both. To access the Applied Cointelligence Report and learn more about CTE Futures work with our partners, visit our website at ctefutures.com. We hope to see you soon. Thank you.